Hello, welcome everybody to our series of talks. What I am now kind of calling in my head, but not out loud, these series of talks to me, well, my book is The Missing Piece in Childbirth, but to me, these talks that we've been doing, they're like the missing piece, P-E-A-C-E. They're the missing piece, I feel, in like absolutely everything. Like today, we're going to be talking about pregnancy, birth, maybe like postnatal depression, um, but like they're just the missing piece in life that I think everyone needs to know about. So yes, so we've had lots of talks on fear of birth and being present in birth, and do we need techniques and all like each month we've been discussing something different. This talk that is with my lovely guest Kate Stokes, who contacted me recently, um, and really just I love to hear people's personal stories. I love to hear people's stories of how they've been touched by this understanding of the mind and how like it's completely transformed their life. Like I just think it's so powerful to hear how it's touched each and every individual, because you really like hear through the story, like you really hear the magic of what this understanding really is. Um, which I think can most powerfully come across sometimes with personal stories. So I was really excited, Kate, when you got in touch. Um, and I'm just really excited to hear whatever you want to share from your past and what you've been through, um, how you came across this understanding. It's just always really interesting, and kind of what you saw in it and what you've done since then. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, what you just said there is perfect. When you said about the piece being missing, that's exactly the experience that that I had. That there was, peace was the last thing that I was experiencing in my pregnancy um, and after the birth, and um, I found this understanding probably when my second child was about 18 months old. So I went through the whole of both of their pregnancies and birth and like the postnatal time without this understanding, and then got this understanding, and my world completely changed, which is why I contacted you, because I was um, I just I just really wish I understood at the time the things that I understand now, because I would have had a very different experience from it. Um, so, well, should I talk about my experience at the time, and then
Yeah, if you want to. But yeah, if you want to. Whatever you want to share. It's whatever you want to share really. If
hmm,
it's probably
well,
interesting for you as well, isn't it? To look back. I don't know how often you've thought about it, like looking back at a hard time and then coming across the understanding afterwards. Um,
yeah, well, it was funny today because I just went just before here. I went round for friends and who had like a 5-month-old baby, and it's so crazy how quickly you forget how like the little world you go into when you're pregnant or have a baby. And I didn't I couldn't believe I didn't remember any of the, how intense it was. I didn't even know how to hold the baby. I was like, oh no, how can I have forgotten? Like my youngest is just turned 3, so I was like, how could I have forgotten in that time? And it made me realize again how extreme that whole experience was for me and can be for others. And like again, it brought up like a wave of respect for other people that are having so many new experiences that really feel like life or death in those kind of early days and in the pregnancy. And yeah, it was yeah, I mean, today I've been thinking about it because of this this webinar tonight, and it's funny re-experiencing some of the feelings that I had, you know, literally, because I'm thinking about them. You know, it's not happening to me now, but I'm still getting that experience of that's coming through kind of physically in memory, because the thoughts there. And yeah, I kind of feel like starting towards the end of the story, and then
Yes.
maybe pop back to the pregnancies and the birth, because they weren't easy. I think everybody who's or a lot of people who've had given birth have stories that weren't so easy. And it wasn't that I nearly died in childbirth, but I definitely had the experience. I thought I was dying, because I had a extreme hemorrhage just after my first son was born, and was passing out. And I remember saying to somebody, "Oh, take the baby," and I remember looking around and thinking, this, you know, might well be the last moment that I ever see my mum, who was in the room, and my husband and my dad. And I thought, oh my God, I'm never gonna get wibbly wobbly, but I'm never gonna see this child grow up or anything. And that all happened in a flash. That happened in an instant. I wasn't like ruminating over it. And then, you know, there was just full-on emergency while they were trying to instantly like pumping me with gel or something like that, to because I was hemorrhaging so much. And it's funny, like looking back, I didn't realize, I didn't tell anybody for like 4 or 5 days that I thought I was going to die at that point, because I thought it was like that I was being over dramatic, or, you know, like I was trying to hide my own experience, because I didn't think it was okay to have had any of those thoughts, and that there would be something wrong with me for having those thoughts. I didn't understand that you couldn't have a thought that isn't human. Like this, any thought you have is just a human thought to have. And I think off the back of that, and off the back of just really not understanding where my experience was coming from, the first few weeks were kind of a hell, really. They were beautiful between me and my son Herbie, but I was almost at the point of you know, heading towards psychosis, in terms of like I was seeing like screaming faces everywhere. I felt absolutely unsafe just to exist. I felt unsafe. And there were moments where I felt okay, you know, and so sometimes those moments would be with my mum, or sometimes those moments would be when breastfeeding worked, or like there wasn't really a rhyme or reason to when those moments were. And obviously, like from where I am now, I can look back and see that I had those moments when I was feeling okay. But at the time, I didn't realize that there was any hope in that, or that was kind of proof of something else going on. At the time, I just thought, I'm completely unsafe, and I can't. It's almost that I couldn't bear to exist. It wasn't that I wanted to die or anything. I just felt so unsafe and jittery that I didn't know how to exist in the moment, not even keep going. And that went on for about 2 weeks, and I kind of got out of it in a really funny way. I was trying to explain to my mum what was going on, and saying, "Oh, I keep trying to think, or I keep having these thoughts saying, oh, it's going to be okay because of this, this, and this." And then I have this thought that goes, "Yeah, but what about this?" And she misheard me and thought I said harbet for some reason. And she just went, "Harbet is a fish." And it made me laugh, and I didn't know what. And like from then on, whenever my head said something like, "Oh no, it's not all right because of this," I'd just go, Harbert is a fish. And it was such a ridiculous like technique that it utterly worked, because it's, you know, looking back, I see what was really happening was that it gave me that moment to realize I didn't have to believe that thought that I was having. You know, like by mocking it, like Harbert is a fish, every time I had this, you know, these thoughts, it was it just created that space to stop me needing to believe it. And it's so I really like looking back and seeing that, you know, that was just like a wisdom that popped up in the moment. Like it couldn't, that we're not going to roll out Harbert as a fish as a like a technique, you know, everybody from mental health. It was how wisdom showed up, and I really love that we can rely on that, that's always going to be personal to us and our situation. And I think that's a big part that's missing in our culture around new mothers, is that to understand that they have that wisdom all the time in the moment. And the amount of times I handed over my like a wisdom to give somebody else's authority, and didn't trust that I actually knew what to do for my baby. I knew how our relationship and his health was okay, but I never stopped worrying about his health, because I thought I was giving away my wisdom to somebody else's advice. So you know, like he had to sleep in my my bed for the first few weeks, because that was the only way that we'd ever get to sleep, and it felt right. And yet I just felt terrified the whole time, because I was going against advice. And it's such a shame. I think that's probably one of the gifts I would give myself if I could go back in time. It's just to say, it's like to give myself the authority and to know what's best for me and my child. And like the fallout of these few weeks that I had was that I ended up with this. I wouldn't say it was like it was postnatal depression ish, but it came out as anxiety. So I had extreme anxiety about well, I thought Herbie was going to die, basically. I just thought there was about a 50-50 chance of him living through. You know, I thought like every night I would think it would be the last time I was going to see him, like he would die of cot death. And what I didn't realize then was that I was having those thoughts to say, oh, he could die of cot death. And so I thought, because I was having it so often, that must mean something. I didn't realize that all that meant was that I was having like repetitive thoughts about it. I thought that actually added weight to, this must be an important thought, because it's coming back. I think that's the way we do judge thoughts. So the anxiety just went on for bloody years. In fact, I was so anxious about the whole thing happening again, and me going into this weird state that I didn't understand and felt so scary to me, that I ended up, for my second pregnancy, I had a special like midwife team around me, and I ended up opting for a cesarean section, because I was just so terrified of the birth, and also just in that period afterwards, I was so terrified that I'd feel like that again. I had no concept that a feeling could be safe. And I think that's what I've been learning more and more over the last couple of years, and all the time now, this is what's so beautiful about this understanding, is it like it never stops giving. You just forever get a deeper and deeper understanding and more insights. And the like to learn to not be scared of your own experience is probably like one of the biggest gifts you can have. And you know, when I heard people talk about that, when I first came across the understanding, I was just like, oh, I'd love that, but that's not for me. I can't get that. I can't have that. And I remember trying to as well, like trying to force myself to be okay with my experiences. But the more of this I've seen, the more I've realized that it's nothing. It's not something I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be being okay with my experience. It's just at some point you can see that they are safe, like the feelings are safe, and that the thoughts that go with the feelings are safe. So there's nothing unsafe about it left. And that's the experience of it. Like I can get some really wonky PMT, and I can even like in like a hormonal way, I can kind of go back to that space where I really don't feel normal, and I feel like paranoid or angry or unsafe, and I can feel all those things now. I can feel unsafe at the same time as knowing that it's perfectly safe to feel those things. And in fact, like the other week, I was kind of just getting curious about it, like what does some feelings actually physically feel like without me labeling them as dangerous. And I was like, oh, there's kind of like a shooting feeling in my tummy. It's going up to my arms. Oh no, when you get that kind of shock of adrenaline or something. And that I was like, oh, well, without that, there's not really that much going on, like without the label that I put on afterwards. And later in the day, I sneezed. So it's like, oh my God, sneezing is way kind of more violent inside my body. Like I could feel stuff shooting all over my body when like the whole body woke up. And I was like, my whole life I've been really scared of feeling these feelings and doing all kinds of things to avoid ever being in those states where I'd feel those feelings. And the sneeze that I thought nothing of and probably don't even notice half the time was more extreme in the end.
So interesting, isn't it? I think it just reminds me of someone said to me that nervousness and excitement apparently feel exactly the same. That feeling of being nervous and the feeling of being excited, that it's the
Yeah,
same feeling. Like, what? Is that possible? Like, we love to be excited and we hate to be nervous. But it's just that labeling of thinking, gosh, I've got to do something that I'm scared about and start getting this feeling.
yeah.
And it's crazy. I love what you say about the sneeze, because the sneeze is actually quite terrifying when you think about it.
It would be absolutely terrifying if you had the same thinking about a sneeze as you
Yes.
had about some of these other states. Then yeah, the sneeze would be terrifying, and they don't just come in ones.
Like we attach no meaning to a sneeze. No meaning.
Yeah, and I think that's
It's
what's
fine.
interesting about like the first time I heard it, you know, about like you could confuse excitement and fear. The first time I heard that, I was like, oh, I must rename my fear as excitement now. That was like the thing that I did, and then I realized, no, I don't have to do any labeling of it, or I mean, it doesn't matter if you label or not. You are or you aren't. That's what's going to happen. But the knowing that it doesn't you know, the label is separate from the actual experience.
Yes.
And that's where it's
It is
awesome.
this, it is this being scared of our feelings. Like
Yeah,
that's, and trying to get out of it. Like so many clients that I've sat in front of, they're like, I know, it's just, I know you're saying it's all thing, but I don't like it. I don't like to feel like that. I don't like it. But like, it's really interesting. We
yeah.
don't like it. We don't like to feel like that.
No, no, we don't. But it's very different not liking it and feeling that you're fundamentally unsafe to have those feelings.
Yes. So now you'll have these feelings of unsafe, but you know you're safe.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I can totally utterly feel unsafe and safe at the same time, because
Amazing.
yeah, I mean, like when I feel unsafe, I've obviously like fallen in and out of it. I'm like, oh God, I'm really unsafe. This is such an awful situation. And then I see, you know, what's happening again. I see that, you know, I'm not experiencing a situation. I'm experiencing like a thought creative version of that situation, and that always comes with a set of feelings. And that, like, you know, that's what you know, when you said about how did I come across the principles, I was like listening to one of Jamie Smart's audiobooks, and I was decluttering at the time, and I had Herbie, who, oh, I don't even know which one it was actually, one of my kids, and or it must be Felix, a baby and decluttering at the same time. So I really wasn't listening to the audio particularly. I was kind of like, you know, yeah, get to the bit where I like achieve more and think less. That was the title, and I was like, yeah, I want to think less. And it was, well, I don't know what he said obviously, but the I really felt like I fell out of the matrix in that moment. I just realized I'd always thought that there was a meaning in the world that I was getting, and sometimes I was being a bit subjective about it, but most of the time I was getting the meaning correct, and that there was something solid there. And the when I realized there wasn't a meaning out there, and there certainly wasn't like a meaning stream coming in, like a something I could see or hear. It just, I was like, oh my goodness, like it's really being created for me inside. Like I'm only ever experiencing thoughts. I've never experienced anything but thought. And yeah, like for a little while I was like, oh, I've fallen down the matrix, and I didn't know what it was called, because I had the audiobook and didn't have any of the resources section, and I was like writing "it's all thought" into Google, trying to desperately find somebody else who had this experience, and yeah, it all got good from then. And it was really interesting because the week before I had gone to the doctor for I think the first time ever apart from the pregnancy, and just said I went with like intrusive thoughts that I was getting, and things like, oh, I'm going to walk in front of a truck, and it happened loads with the baby. Like I was like, I'm going to put this baby in this boiling water. Like it was such an upsetting thought to me, and I'd stand back, you know, against the wall of the kitchen, because I was really scared that, having had this thought, that I could put the baby in the boiling water. So there was obviously nothing about. I didn't want to do that. It wasn't like, oh, I'd like to do that to stop him crying or anything. It literally nothing like that. It was literally a thought that popped into my head and scared the bejesus out of me, because Like I want to do anything I can to protect my baby. And I found it utterly disturbing that I should have these crazy thoughts, and like I couldn't go, you know, near the edge of a high place. I couldn't go near the edge of the road. You know, I'd be gripping my steering wheel because I didn't want to drive off you know, the side of a bridge. And I thought there's something really wrong with me here. Like, why am I having these crazy thoughts, which I then started labeling as I can't even remember the label now. I can't remember the label, but you know, like these, just they've got like a label for it, like disturbing obsessive thoughts or something like that. And the minute I understood that it wasn't coming from the world, that it was just being created, and that what was being created was out of a stuff that doesn't have any form, like that the thoughts I was having were like transparent and just mist, you know, like an illusion projected onto mist. You know, it's not really there. It's not permanent. It pretends to be a wall. It pretends that it, you know, it's the same a long time, and it's not. It's a nothing. And yeah, once I realized that, I just stopped. Well, I was going to say I just stopped having those thoughts because they stopped bothering me. Like it didn't matter that like, oh, I could throw myself over that bridge. I was just like, oh look, my stupid brain just said, oh, I could throw myself over the bridge, but like I had no power in it at all, because I wasn't going to do that. That's just an unbidden thought that has popped in. Doesn't mean anything, doesn't have any power. And so like both things are interesting to me. The fact that I just didn't get those thoughts so often was good, but also the fact that when they did come, they didn't do anything to me. And you know, I still get them occasionally, and sometimes they go woo, like because I experienced the whole thing. That's the whole point of it. You experience it when you experience like that thought coming to life. You experience the feelings coming to life, and it's real. It looks real. Like for that second, it looks real that I'm going to jump in front of the truck, but and then it's gone, and like there's nothing to worry about here. And that looked like a massive problem to fix. Like I was like, well, how am I ever going to stop my brain from thinking such awful things? And then there wasn't anything to fix.
Huh. It just went poof. It just disappeared.
Yeah, because it wasn't a thing that needed fixing in the first place. The problem literally didn't exist. It just looked like a problem to me.
It's so useful that you talk about this, because I think it's so common that women in the early weeks and months get the most crazy of thinking, you know, when their baby is screaming and you're so tired. Just the sleep deprivation in itself is just like torturous. And you don't know what you're doing, and it's all just like, and of course, the most weirdest that, you know, if we were to go and interview mothers, I'm sure just so many, like, I just want to throw my baby out the window and all these, and it must freak people out, like really freak people out thinking like that. It's just so useful to hear you talk about it, of how just it lost all its, you weren't scared of it, and you just weren't scared of of that thinking anymore. You just
Yeah.
saw it for what it was.
Did Tanya, did you want to say something just then?
Yeah, just on this, because I co-authored and published a book on motherhood, and it was of short stories. And one of the stories was by this woman who wrote about her experience of wanting to throw her baby out the window. And the story was that, you know, she wanted to throw the baby out the window, but she didn't do it. And she never did it. And instead she went and got a cup of tea, and she sat down, and it's a short story, but I can't remember exactly the words. And for the woman who wrote the story, we published it anonymously under another name. And she was really troubled to even allow us to publish the story. I mean, she had submitted it, but then she was like worried. And just because even her story being out there, she thought that may label her as some kind of mother. And then before we published the book, we held a focus group of about, I think it was about 6 or 8 women who were new mums. And basically, myself and my co-author, we looked after all the babies, and we gave all the short stories to the women to read. And there was a woman there, and she had her baby was like almost a year, and she was just so stunned, but from reading that story alone, and she's like, "You've just changed my life," because that story described what I've been experiencing, and I thought I was the only one, and I thought I was crazy, and I thought I was just such a bad mother, and no one told me that they were having those thoughts too, and that it didn't mean anything, and it didn't mean that I was a bad mom. And that was like, oh, we need to make sure that story's in, because we've just changed her life just by her seeing that that's just another woman's experience as well, and there's nothing special about that thought. There's nothing special about that. And yeah, and it's one of those stories that after the book came out, people would be like, oh, it hits them hard, but then they realize, oh, that's then just a normal part of being a new mum, that these crazy thoughts can come in and they don't define us. And yeah, so that's just really hitting it like where you were saying it as well.
Yeah, and I think we really hurt ourselves when we think we're the when we think our thoughts are so good about who we are, and that we really hurt ourselves thinking we're the only ones who think that. With anybody who has ever tried to get babies to now, you know, going to the extreme of all kinds of thoughts, and what it does for somebody when they realize it's a human thing. It's not like a Katie thing or a Deborah thing. It's just a humaning thing. That's what you do in a humaning. When you've got a baby screaming and you desperately need to go to sleep, then you start humaning. Then what shows up could be any kind of thoughts, and that's what thoughts do. You don't get to choose what comes, you just get them, and it's a very human thing to just want that baby to stop crying because you can't take it anymore, and then you can. I mean, that's one thing about the those early days with the babies. You can, if you're given the opportunity, you can really see those kind of tidal waves of emotion and thought that you have during the day. I just remember it just getting unbearable, and then I remember it getting calm, and I couldn't understand what it was that was unbearable. Like within the situation, I was like, what how come it's also calm and lovely now? How come I just completely lose it? How come it just feels like hell and overwhelming? And I used to kind of get the experience of almost going blind with the noise, like when I had one crying, and one going, mummy, 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 and I'm trying to get the food, or I'm trying to feed the baby, and you just can't do everything quick enough. I kind of went blind with this year, like, and it was it was a long time before I realized. Well, I found it a wonderful relief to realize that it wasn't like my feelings of blindness and panic, and that I couldn't cope with it. When I realized that wasn't coming from the situation, that really did something for me, because I realized that wasn't my only option of response. Like, I mean, it's not that I would get to choose how I would respond, but I found it a great relief to know that that noise wouldn't automatically make me feel like, you know, like so scared. And it just gave me enough pause to kind of bring back my awareness of what was going on. You know, I could just sit back and go, oh, he's all right. You know, he's just humaning in a way that a baby does. You know, he's communicating, he doesn't like something, and he's okay. He is also just experiencing thought, and soon he'll experience other thought. You know, and when I know he's okay and I know I'm okay, I can go back to being the adult and looking after a child, rather than needing the child to stop crying so I can be okay, because I really felt like I was not okay while they were crying. And that was a massive relief for me, because it's obviously that's a daily event, and I felt like I became an awful mother every time I couldn't handle it and would end up, you know, snapping and doing all those things that we'd already put in our rule book that we were not going to do. And yeah, I think there's so much value in knowing they're okay, they're experiencing thought. I'm okay, I'm just experiencing thought. And the one thing we know about thought is it'll change, and there's no emergency going on anymore. There's just people doing the things that people are meant to do at that age.
It's real acceptance, isn't it? Acceptance of the human experience, like full range, like acceptance of what a baby does. Is, do you know what I mean? Like why are you crying? Like, that's what a baby does. Someone just said to me, you know, well, that's how they communicate. Like, it's really just so obvious. That's how they communicate, because they can't talk. Suddenly I'm like, oh, like, of course they cry. But it's just real acceptance of, you know, the whole experience of what the baby's going through, and then obviously our own experience. It's just real, just sort of becoming okay, like you say, just becoming okay with all of it.
Yeah.
But kind of in a way effortlessly. Like you said, something clicked when you were listening to that audiobook, and you kind of fell into this.
It comes from understanding, doesn't it? I think when you understand something, then there's it's just there's nothing to do then, because you automatically kind of accept the situation. It's like I don't know what words I'm allowed to say on this podcast, but we used to have this app that was called Wonder Weeks, which was really interesting, because it would tell you about, there were certain weeks where a child would go really really like stroppy and grumpy and cry a lot and stuff, and then they would have a massive developmental leap. And it was known in our mum's group as wanker weeks, because they really just became little wankers for a week, and then they'd have these amazing gifts that they could do the next week, you know, like be able to understand that their hands belong to them or whatever it was. And I mean, that understanding, especially for my husband, just like it's changed his world completely. Before, he saw something, he was out of control and couldn't do anything about, and then suddenly had compassion for the child, because he understood. So I think that understanding, whatever it is it always helps.
It just changes things automatically. Yeah, I was just thinking back to when I was talking about, you know, not liking bad experiences, that the understanding that it's telling us something. You know, there's wisdom in these awful feelings. There's
Yeah.
wisdom in it. You know, it's just like, come on, you're like, you've got caught up. You're totally caught up. You're not in reality here. It's like, it's telling us something. So it's so unbelievably useful, as we interpret it as, oh gosh, this is awful, I hate it, like, quick, do something. But if we could just kind of see it as it's amazing. It's like an alarm clock saying, come on, you know, like a gentle push, nudge, like, come on, there's nothing going on here. You're just in a misunderstanding. You're stuck in a, what did you call it? The matrix.
Yeah.
I
It's
think what else, if I can add, like, what else is missing from our understanding of pregnancy and postpartum is that it's such a sensitive time for a woman. And so we don't have the compassion for ourselves. And if society already had taught us that pregnancy and postpartum, and I work now in the field of midlife change, perimenopause and menopause, like, these are all times when we're sensitive for a good reason. And so you can imagine, like, you move into your postpartum period and you already had compassion for yourself, and then you already would understand, oh yeah, I'm in a sensitive period, oh yeah, my thoughts, like, can get a little bit extreme or whatever, and that's okay, because, like, the feeling is immediately going to guide me back. But we don't because we think, oh, I know I've got the baby and I'm supposed to be this kind of mom and I'm supposed to be doing this and it's all supposed to be under control and I'm supposed to be under control when everything is under control. And we're totally missing this aspect of a sensitive time when we need to have, like, this extra portion of compassion for ourselves. And it's like, I see it now, and I never thought about it at the time. I never, I just thought, when I was having those everything's out of control moments, it's just like, well, I'm out of control. I'm just not doing a good job right now, and then you take it down that route, rather than saying, well, yeah, remember, I'm in a sense of time, and there's a good reason for that.
Yeah. And again, that's like, that self-compassion comes from understanding again, doesn't it? Like, when you say there's good reason to be sensitive at those times, and your whole body and mind is wired to be sensitive, and if we have the compassion, if you have that understanding, then you automatically get that compassion for yourself. And you're right, I think yeah, it's almost like we wait for permission to look after ourselves, or to have compassion for ourselves.
Someone could have told you, actually, in your first birth, like, I'm sure from what I've heard, what you experienced is really common. If you've had that kind of situation where you think you're going to die, then those postpartum weeks or months can feel a little crazy, because if you have that on playback, you have that instant on playback, and what that meant if you had died in that moment, then you can be getting these sort of extreme reactions or something. But no one told you, because no one sort of held you in that space and said, oh, now you're in this sensitive time and you've just had this experience that you may experience as trauma, afterwards. And so just, like, be compassionate with yourself. Like, what a difference that would have made. But it's like that whole medicalization of birth. Well, Deborah knows that, I'm onto this, but it's just like the whole medicalization of birth is just like, well, let's just push you in here. You give birth, move on. Oh, we stopped the hemorrhage. Okay, you're fine. Now go on and look after your baby, rather than taking, like, this holistic approach of, like, comforting you and being there for you and offering you support when you're in this sensitive time. And that's, like, so it's the wisdom of the system which is within us, but lacking in every system that we go through when we're, in pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
That's exactly what exactly what words were coming to me. The wisdom of the system, and we just overriding it as a world. Probably in some cultures and communities they've got it right, but we're just overriding it entirely. It's amazing, wisdom is there. But what really struck me, Kate, in your story is that you were still looking after your baby. You were still doing what you needed to do. Like you said, you were terrified about it, but you knew that you needed your baby in your bed. Like you were following what you needed to do. You were following your wisdom of what you knew to do. And, despite all the craziness that was going along in parallel, if you just looked functionally at what you were doing, it sounds like you were just doing, it was happening, that the baby was being looked after, somehow. And that's just also so striking to me that, the wisdom will just sort of live us. We will just, continue. And then our mind is doing something entirely different that's making it all like a total nightmare. Would you?
Yeah. And it's, I like looking back on the wisdom that popped up in that time. Like, I didn't have the understanding, but, which would have helped me so much, but the wisdom was still there. Like, I remember drawing a picture of a wave and sticking it on the fridge so that I could understand, like, when when I was overcome with these feelings, that it would just come like a wave, and then like peak and then dissipate again. And I would do other things like so this is when my second son was born, and so I had a little one but also had a toddler, and I really didn't like the way I was always reacting to the toddler, because I was sort of like and I would find little things like I had this idea that I could distract myself with my senses in some way to like snap me out of it. So I'd carry peppermints around, or I'd make a cup of tea, or I'd had this little pot of something that smelled really, really strong, and I'd do all these things, and that got me through it. That was the wisdom that popped up at that time and got me through it. Like harbour is a fish, and it's like now I know. What was happening was just the same thing as is happening, when you have a toddler that's upset, and you just distract them, when they're a young baby, you just distract them. So basically that just helps them get new fresh thoughts. So all these things that I was doing, it wasn't the peppermint that made me feel better, it was that I was suddenly thinking about something else. I was thinking about finding the peppermint, and that would just help move on, which it would anyway, but at least it was happening more under my control.
Amazing. Oh gosh, I can't believe the time has gone so quickly. I have to ask you about your film, the Kate's film. Please tell us about this film. Is it specifically like a film about the three principles? I'd love to just hear about it and get hold of it, and sounds amazing.
So I've made like 5 films, and they're virtual reality films. So you can watch them on your phone, and you can kind of look around the environments. Like we go down a rabbit hole, and because this is Alice in Wonderland themed, and there's a Mad Hatter's party and stuff. Or if you've got a little like one of these. So yeah, if you've got like a little headset, I think they're about £3. You can put your phone in there, and then you can actually look around in 3D films. So these are basically they're not describing the 3 principles, but they're kind of looking at some of the implications of it, like where resilience comes from, how your reality is created, because I just thought that the virtual reality is such a great metaphor for it, because it's like we've got a thought created virtual reality. It's like we're just walking around in it. So so they're kind of Alice in Wonderland films, but they're like short, they're about 5 minutes. So they look at things like resilience and where insight comes from and things like that. So anybody can watch them. They're free. They're going to be on YouTube from the 29th of March. So I can give you some links.
Wow. What can people type in? I mean, I definitely put the links underneath this interview when I post it up, but what can people type in to find it? Do you know yet or not yet?
I've just realised it's on my VR thing. I don't know this. If you write Wonderland X into YouTube, then hopefully on the 29th of March we should have them all up. And then
that is amazing. Gosh, that really helps so many people, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, I hope so.
Huh. It is. It's amazing how we don't really question our reality. You know, we don't really question how our reality is being created. It seems so crazy in a way. Like we realize on some level we're having thoughts, you know, but just really like basic on the surface. Like it seems such a fundamental thing. Like now when I look back, I think, what did I think? Like what did I think? It's really funny.
Yeah, it's like, you're like, why didn't I spot this before? Because it's really kind of obvious. Well, I mean, it never looks obvious, but it is when you think about it. Like when I think about, you know, the times when I put my baby down for a nap and had all them, you know, special mummy feelings and laugh and stuff. And then the other times where I put him down, I'm like, please, God, just go to sleep. And then the other ones where we want to put him out the window. The situation was the same, like the putting the baby down was the same, and my experience was completely different in all of them. Like, why didn't we spot that?
Yes.
Or we do spot it, but we just think, oh, that's what I thought about that, and we don't realize that it's the whole situation in the first place that we've created in our mind. It's not just our response to an event. By the time we've experienced an event, the thought has already created it. Like you can't create a thought. It can't create an event neutrally in your head. You've already got an act.
Right. Yeah, you've already seen it in that way, and it's already happened, and that's just objective reality for you. Then, yeah.
So for ages, I was like trying to argue against that. So I would be like, you know, why am I seeing this screaming child as annoying when I know it's not? You know, like, you know, it's neutral. And it took me a long time to realize, that the thought part, you know, it's easy to spot the thought part where I go, that's really annoying, I really wish it would stop. But it's much harder to spot that the creation of seeing that child annoyingly cry in the first place. You know, you've got no choice about how you react to that, because the first bit has already been made by thought.
Right.
Then you have those thoughts about that.
Right. You've created the whole thing. It's so interesting. So us thinking of, I shouldn't be thinking, which is a lot of us after we come across this understanding, it's like, I should know better. What, you know, this, I can think of it a different way, but it's already been created. It's so sneaky.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, the judgment you can put on that.
Yeah. It reminds me of that quote of David Bohm, a physicist, who says, thought creates our world, and then says, I didn't do it. It's just happening the whole time, and we forget all the time, don't we? Just lose sight of it all the time.
Well, it can't be any other way. I mean, you can't have a neutral experience. Like to have an experience, you have to have a point of view, otherwise there's no experience to be had.
Right. Amazing. Oh, I'm so excited to watch your films. Amazing. Wow. Tanya, do you have any questions? I can't believe we've come to the end so quickly. Do you want to ask anything?
No, I just think it's just amazing to to listen to what you shared, and to just I love seeing this understanding play out in, so it's in all our life, and we know that, but then it comes to places where there are labels that are so stuck for, like, postpartum depression and the anxiety, and people can carry on with those labels for a lifetime, and the fact that you've had postpartum depression, doctors will tell you, oh, you're likely to experience depression in menopause. Like, it's just like it will just carry on, you see, and you can just, like, that label just, it just melts away. Like, it's so incredible. And I just love what you shared and how you shared it. That's not a question, it's a statement.
It is. It just gives so much freedom, doesn't it? Like that's ultimately this understanding. You just,
yeah, and it's just like, if we knew that's the thing. It's just like, wow, it's mind-blowingly simple and misunderstood, and it could change so many lives, and it could change so many women's experience postpartum and in birth, and please go on sharing, I suppose. That's what I want to say, because it's so important. It can, really can change lives, just sharing what you've shared.
yeah, amazing. I'm just thinking of the whole Alice in Wonderland theme and stuff. Is it a lot about illusion and reality then? I mean, I don't really understand Alice in Wonderland. I'm sure it's very deep, but is a lot? Is that kind of is it a lot about illusion and reality? Is that where you'll come from with it?
Yeah, Alice in Wonderland is so fun in so many ways, and like I just think it adds up in so many ways to this understanding, because to start, the whole idea of curious and curiouser, I think as soon as you get curious about your experience, there's a space for something else to come through, and you can have new insight on how to see things. So I love the idea of people getting curious and playful with what's going on in their head, and like the whole idea that, oh, we're all mad here. We're all sane people with a mad person talking to us, like, constantly, all the time. If you need, it's like it's it's like the and I just think, like, the Cheshire Cat, I use, well, I didn't actually use it too much in the film in the end, but like the Cheshire Cat reminds me of, like, sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Like, sometimes you see this, sometimes you don't. And that's almost the gift of it. I mean, well, it is the gift of it. Like, we get to experience life as life. Like, we get to hold our baby and drink it in, experience it all. That's the gift of the way it's all created for us. And the second gift is the gift of seeing how it's created, so that we don't have to suffer so much at the same time. So it's to see it and to not see it are the two beauties of life, really.
Oh, amazing. I was just talking yesterday to someone about, like, thought is nothing. Thought is just nothing. Like, we realize we don't have to take anything so seriously, and we can be more playful. And then on the other hand, thought is everything. Thought is everything. It's like, without thought, we'd have no life. Like, that is how we experience. That is life. So it's like, it's such a paradox, isn't it? It's everything, but it's like nothing. But this is so amazing that this is the rich experience of life, to just, I suppose that's what it gives us in the end, just to be able to just experience it in all its glory, the ups, the downs, the richness of it, and like you say, not to be scared of it. Not always, but it's just such a gift, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a last question. Is there any reality according to you?
Is there any reality?
As if that's an easy question. I just wonder, I don't know why it popped up.
I feel like just like saying yes or no and leaving it.
Yes, no, bye. Like, is there?
I think that's a fascinating question because, I mean, it's all going to come down to semantics at the end of
Yes.
the day. But I don't think there is. I think you create reality out of thought, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything there. I think there's I think what is there does not have meaning. It's not neutral. It just doesn't have a meaning, and it takes thought to create a reality. So without a person or I don't know, another being to have thought, there isn't a reality, because oh god, this is getting really deep. Like, and here's the classic mug. So like, without the reality that it's a mug only exists inside a human who's thinking. Like before the thought, it's not a mug. It's just well, I was going to say it's just pottery or clay or whatever like that. But that would take thought to make it that. At the end of the day, it's only atoms or energy, and it takes. There is no reality without thought, even though whatever I'm touching exists.
Mm. This is getting way too deep. But I just wondered I just love the whole theme of your films. Just sounds brilliant. Oh, it's been so amazing. You're just amazing. You're such an amazing person. Just loved speaking to you. Just so gentle. Just a gentle, amazing person. I'm so happy that you got in touch and I got to speak to you. And I'm sure this is really going to help a lot of mums who are just, going crazy, just to at least give them just a bit of hope, like it's not as real as you think it is. There's just that as a glimmer of hope is priceless, really. And the fact that they get to watch your films as well, that can get them rolling on the journey of this amazing understanding, which is, like you say, just keeps on, lifelong understanding that we just keep with, like we're all addicted to it. for that reason, it's just like, it's like the never ending, I don't know if the rabbit hole is never ending, but it's just like this never ending sort of curious adventure, isn't it? Amazing. Oh, and Kate plays Alice. I just have to tell everyone that, because I think that's very important. Oh, thank you so much. And yes, I will post the links underneath this video. And I hope to meet you one day. Are you in London?
I'm in Brighton, or near Brighton.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fab. Oh, that's nice, by the sea. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say good night to everyone, and thank you so much. And I hope to meet you face to face someday. Okay, bye. Bye, everyone.